Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel. Welcome to another video. I have a problem. Well, not a problem that I need to see a doctor, but last couple of weeks, my productivity has been taking a dive. It's been extremely terribly bad. At least that's how I feel about it. I have been doing a lot of little things left and right, and I've been working on Space Grunts. Of course, I released games and things like that. So yeah, okay, I have done a lot of things. But focusing on the work, focusing on working on Space Grunts, it just has been terrible. So hopefully this week it will actually get back to a certain level that I'm very comfortable with. Usually I talk about stuff I'm doing and I'm working on and I'm releasing and everything that I encounter. Right now that's not a lot. I think I have a couple of things I can talk about. One of those is Nintendo Switch 2 developer kits. Where are they? Big thing, and a couple of other things. So I'm sure we can fill this video up with me just doing a lot of rambling, and by the end of the video you probably have no clue what you just been watching. Not sure that's a good thing. Let's try it anyway. Alright, so before we start about all the game development stuff, one little thing. Regular viewers will remember that Graham was visiting my office a few weeks ago. Here's the clip just to remind you what happened. Okay, so let's just do the video, I guess, after the intro. Now, I'm not gonna accuse him of anything, but before he visited, I had 5 tiny shrimp in the aquarium. After he visited, I started noticing a baby shrimp. I'm not putting a link here. I'm not saying he did something to the fish tank. We now have over 40 shrimp in the fish tank. There's a lot of babies suddenly in here. Not blaming Graham, not blaming him at all. It's just very coincidental. It's just a very happy coincidence. Let's keep it at that. So a lot of shrimp in the fish tank. Let's talk about game development. So, Nintendo, where are the developer kits for Switch 2? It's a little bit of a problem. There are developer kits. I know there are because I also know people at bigger companies. I know there are developer kits out there for the Switch 2. However, since January 16th, there was a post on the Nintendo developer backend saying we don't have Switch dev kits available just yet. Switch 2 will let you know when. And this is a message to almost all developers, at least at my level of development. Bigger companies have developer kits. Smaller companies, mostly indie game developers, don't. Now the problem for me is luckily very tiny. We have a lot of games out on Switch right now, and only one of them seems to break. Meganoid isn't functioning. It starts up, it shows the Orangepixel logo, and then it dies. It crashes. I tried to turn on crash reports, but haven't really received any reports on the back end, so I'm not sure if that's a Switch 2 thing as well, that they're not pushing those through yet. I'm not sure. But it makes fixing it very difficult. So right now the games we have out on Nintendo Switch is all of these games. So the recent one, Guns Power, Regulator's not yet, but most of the modern games are out there and only Meganoid is failing. So that's not a bad thing. We of course I have more games working on the next one, Regulators, and I think the ones that are missing are Space Grunts 2, Gunslugs 3, and Ashworld. 2 of those are almost working, and we might be missing a few of these older ones, but I'm not sure we're gonna put them on the Switch anyway. So yeah, a lot of those are working, but Meganoid is not. Now the problem here is that we do not understand why it's not working and functioning, and that means we can try to fix it, but we're gonna have to guess on what's happening. Best guess, my first guess was, well, Meganoid was the first game we released on Switch, so it was built with an old SDK. That might be the reason it's not functioning on Switch 2. But then we also have Gunslugs, which was ported maybe a few months later, and that one seems to be working. So that kind of dismisses the whole SDK idea unless we switched SDKs between those games. I'm not sure. Of course, I create the PC versions, mobile versions, and then my buddy Friedel, Serious Lion on the Discord, does all the console versions. So I'm not sure if we switch SDK. He was on vacation. We'll have to check now that he's back if that's an option. He also mentioned it could be the music, because he changed the way music loads in using monogame. There's a different way apparently, which would make sense because we see the Orangepixel logo, and at that point it has loaded in everything. At the moment it crashes, it's the only thing it tries to do is initiate the menu, which means it starts music for the first time, and it tries to check if there's a save game available. Those are two of the things that might make it crash. So we're going to try to fix or change those, build a new version against the new SDK. I think we're 4 or 5 versions later now, so that might just magically fix it. We'll submit it to Nintendo. From what I understand is that any game that's now submitted, including patches, will be tested versus the Switch, but also the Switch 2. So you're actually submitting for both systems at once. That's a good thing and a bad thing. The fact that the Switch 2 is fully compatible, backwards compatible with the Switch 1, kind of means that we cannot re-release these games. As a developer or as a business, you kind of wish you could. You kind of want the Switch not to be backwards compatible so that you can re-release these games and people would have to rebuy them for their new console. I know that sounds somewhat dirty, but that's really how business works. Right now it just means that developers, third-party developers, will have to create new stuff that's either exclusive to Switch 2, which probably means you'll have to use a lot more processing power so that it cannot run on Switch 1, or you just still create the same kind of content you're already doing anyway. So it's a new console for a user, people buying it on, I think it was one of the fastest selling consoles since PlayStation 4 maybe. I read something like that. So it's doing very good business for Nintendo, obviously, but for developers this is not gonna be an interesting thing, not an interesting market, nothing new, nothing different. It's just a continuation of the Nintendo Switch. So yeah, in regards to that, it's fun to have my games available on Switch 2, but it doesn't change anything, and the games are old, so people that already bought it on Switch 1 can just continue playing it. People that never bought it are probably not even gonna see these games, because these games are way down in the Nintendo shop somewhere at the bottom as an old release, and those people have a new shiny console, they just want new shiny games. I've seen some developers waiting for Switch 2 developer kits. Waste of time. Just get Switch 1 developer kits, build your game for that. I think the biggest change or difference is that it has more processing power and rendering powers. So yeah, if you can make it run on Switch 1, that's still a huge market. Not everybody is moving to a Switch 2. I'm not. I don't see anything interesting in the Switch 2. Honestly, I haven't touched my Switch 1 that often, actually. It's still near my consoles, near my TV, but it hasn't been turned on for a while. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not moving to Switch 2, so I would still be buying Switch 1 games. So I think as a developer, it's just silly to wait for a Switch 2 developer kit. Just continue making them for Switch 1. And most of my games are running without issues on Switch 2. So there shouldn't be an issue if you make it run on one. It should also be running on the other, I think, in most cases. So yeah, but still, Nintendo, give indie game developers a dev kit option. Why do we not get the access to it? It probably has to do with money. In most cases, it has to do with how much revenue you create and generate. It's not about how much content you have, because I have a lot of games on there. I know a couple of other smaller developers that also have a lot of games on there, but they don't have developer kits. So it probably has to do something with revenue and things like that. Maybe I could get a developer to, maybe I could get a Switch 2 developer kit using some context left and right, but I don't think we really need it. So for now, we're just going to try to fix Meganoid, upload a new version, and see what comes back from Nintendo. And that's our Switch 2 development process for now. And speaking of game stores, I've been working on the Epic Game Store for PC. Well, not working on the game store, but trying to get my games to the point that I can release them on there. The problem for the Epic Game Store is that if your game is released on Steam and it has achievements, they also demand that your game on the Epic Game Store will have achievements. I'm fine with that. That's not the problem. But it would have been a lot easier if they actually made it easy to implement achievements. Now there is an SDK, there is an API, whatever you want to call it. Of course, not for my game code. I write code in Java. My games are written in Java. But somebody did the heavy lifting there. So same as for Steam, somebody did the heavy lifting to create a Java wrapper around it. For the Epic Game Store, it's also available. It works, I think. I'm very far now. I actually unlocked my first test achievements in Residual. So it seems to be working. However, to get to that point, it's again a little bit difficult for smaller developers. To get your game up and running on the Epic Game Store, you also need to be a company. That's okay, we can all do that. You also need to have a website because you need to be able to get verified. Your domains have to be verified. Now, I know a lot of game developers, smaller game developers, who don't even have a website. It's not really needed in this day and age, I think, but it's still a good thing to have. Especially if services like this require you to modify your DNS domain settings so that they can check if you actually are the owner of the domain, and after that is fine, apparently. And now that also meant I had to change my DNS record, so you need to have a domain hosted somewhere where you actually have access to change these things, or your host can change it for you and then hope they can do that actually within a couple of days and not weeks or months. It's a very weird process. So once I had that all set up, created the game to test things out, created a sandbox environment, which means we're running a tool from Epic Games. So now I can fake my achievement unlocking, and that part works. I'm just not sure if that works on the full version yet, honestly. There is a difference in how you have to set it up, and only thing I can find anywhere online is how to set it up for the sandbox, how to log in for your credentials in the sandbox environment. But I now have that done, it's running. Now I want to know how to set it up for the actual environment. Yeah, I'm not sure yet how to do that, but I have something up and running. So I think the next step is just going to be getting a first game up there, uploading or creating all the achievements, and then somehow test it in the live version from the launcher and not in the sandbox version. I think I'm very close to finishing up that work, but it's been something that I've been doing in between my normal work, and every time I'm not focused on Space Grunts, I dig out these little side quests, I guess we can call it. Little side quests and missions to just keep busy and do things that push my games forward into multiple markets and things like that. So I don't just sit around and watch YouTube all day or TikToks all day long. And there's a lot of TikToks, a lot of fun TikToks. Actually, I should be, no, focus. So I have been busy on multiple things. I've also been working on things I cannot talk about. Some of that I can talk about soonish and only partly. I hate it when other people talk about mysterious things they can't talk about. So ignore I said this. But stuff is happening and working and going on and things like that. Of course, we're gonna try to push a new version of Meganoid to Switch. Hopefully it passes. Hopefully it passes on Switch 2 as well. In which case all games seem to be up and running on Switch 2. And that means we can push on the last couple of games that are still missing. Ashworld, almost done. Gunslugs, apparently, Friedel mentioned he has that almost up and running. I'm curious. And then I think we have Space Grunts 2. And that should bring us almost have all our games up and running on the Switch. Also on Atari VCS. However, right now, from what I understand from Discord, the VCS store is down or not functioning correctly. Yeah, the thing here is that Atari is like a big company and it has been moving from hand to hand every now and then. And at some point somebody wanted to create this Atari VCS Kickstarter-like project. Pretty cool. It's a fun little device. However, when the company moved and continued, people really didn't care about it anymore. It seems like that's what's happening. So there's maybe like 1 or 2 persons at Atari still pushing things and trying to fix things and trying to keep it running. And if they, for some reason, are not available, things burn. I hope it still gets turned on again or fixed at some point. But right now it's not a good look. But honestly, it lasted longer than I expected. It could still continue. I hope it does, because we still have a few games we want to push there. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ends at some point fairly soon. We'll see. Anyway, as long as we can push new builds, Friedel and I will be creating games for these type of consoles. It's also actually very interesting. I think we've now been working together for 5 years and we never met. We've never met each other. We mostly communicate through Discord. I think we had one meeting, maybe 2, with a camera on, so we know who we are and we talk a lot. And so, but we never met. Maybe we should change that someday soon. Who knows? Anyway, let's end this video here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, and if you're one of the idle watcher who has nothing to add to everything I just mentioned in this video, but you want to show your appreciation and making it this far into the video, the keyword for this week's video is shrimp. Shrimp in the comments below. We have a lot of shrimp after Graham's visit. Last time I'm mentioning that in this video. And that's it. So thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye.